Worsening floods, longer monsoon, crazy storms, and the rising temperature. How does it affect us? So, climate change has become a hot topic in recent years, especially after the increase of environmental disaster around the world. The more we read about it, the scarier we get. And the World Bank predicts that Malaysia's coastal zone will be severely impacted due to the rising sea level and will be the most felt by those who live around the east coast. A mere meter of sea level rise could mean catastrophic impacts on 7,000 kilometers squares of coastal lands. And next, a report listing global crises guided countries on how to prevent and navigate them. So it highlights the impact of climate change on the Sustainable Development Goals in Malaysia. And the SDG are set of global goals that aim to address social, economic, and environmental challenges. And there are 17 goals in total. In Malaysia, climate change has an impact on more than 10 of these goals, which means that addressing climate change is essential for achieving sustainable development in this country. So there are a few examples which climate change affect the SDGs in Malaysia. For example, SDG 2, Zero Hunger. SDG 3, Good Health and Well-being. SDG 6, Clean Water and Sanitation. SDG 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities. And last but not least, SDG 13, Climate Action, which urge to take action to combat climate change and its impact. We mentioned about SDG 13 Climate Action. So in this assignment, I would like to focus on how the Arctic plays a crucial role in global climate patterns and is a region that is particularly vulnerable to climate change. And the melting of Arctic sea ice and the permafrost can contribute to a rising sea level, which could impact coastal communities around the world. So SDG 13, which means to take urgent action to really combat climate change and its impact towards this world. So how did the Arctic causing flooding in Malaysia? So before we talk about this, let me briefly explain what is the Arctic and the Antarctic. The Arctic is a region located at the northernmost part of the Earth, which include the Arctic Oceans and parts of several countries. It is known for its cold climate and unique wildlife. The region is a home to indigenous communities who rely on the land and sea for their way of life. And the Arctic is currently experiencing a significant changes due to climate change, which is affecting the region's ecologies and has a global implication for climate and sea level rise. So where is Antarctica? Antarctica is a continent located at the southernmost part of the Earth. It is the fifth largest continent and is mostly covered in ice, making it the coldest and driest place on Earth. Unlike the Arctic, which is an ocean surrounded by land, Antarctica is a landmass surrounded by water, and the continent is known for its unique and diverse wildlife including penguins, seals, and whales, and it also an important area for scientific research. So as you can see, the floods in Malaysia are worsening, spreading, and lasting longer. They are damaging and they cost the countries billions to implement flood mitigation plans, which means they are affecting more and more people, causing a greater damage. So this is partly due to the increasing urbanization of many areas, which means that more people and infrastructure are located in the flood-prone zones. So how did the Arctic cause flooding in Malaysia? The Arctic itself does not directly cause floods in Malaysia. However, the changes in the Arctic climate can contribute to the global weather patterns that may increase the likelihood of flooding in Malaysia. One example of this is the phenomenon known as the Arctic Oscillation, AO, and the Arctic Oscillation is a pattern of atmospheric pressure difference between the Arctic and the lower latitudes that can affect weather patterns around the world. So how does the polar vortex work? The stable polar vortex is maintained by a balance between the rotation of the Earth and the temperature gradient between the poles and the equator. The polar region is generally colder than the mid-latitudes, and this temperature difference creates a pressure gradient that causes air to flow from the equator towards the poles, and the flow of air is deflected by the rotation of the Earth, causing it circulate in a clockwise direction around the North Pole and a counterclockwise direction around the South Pole. This circulation is known as the polar vortex. So, what is the difference between the strong polar vortex and the weak polar vortex? So, for strong polar vortex, when the polar vortex is stable, the circulation of air is strong and well defined. This helps to keep the cold air mass confined to the polar region and prevents them from spilling into the mid-latitudes. However, when the vortex becomes unstable, it can cause the circulation of air to weaken and become distorted. This can allow cold air to spill out of the polar regions and into the mid-latitudes, leading to extreme cold weather events and other disruption in the climates. So to simplify, warm equator plus cold Arctic equal to strong jet stream, as well as regulated climate for all. So for weak polar vortex, during the winter months, the polar vortex can sometimes become weakened or disrupted, leading to the phenomenon known as wavy polar vortex. When the polar vortex is weakened, it can cause the circulation of air to become more meandering or wavy. This can lead to the formation of large-scale strokes and ridges in the jet stream, which can allow cold air from the polar region to spill out into the mid-latitudes, and warm air from the mid-latitudes to move into the polar regions. So to simplify, a not-so-cold air with warm equator equal to not-so-cold air move down, weak jet stream, irregular climate, and extreme weather. So, what does it mean? It means it will result in a prolonged monsoon, stronger storms, and extreme temperatures. So, as you can see, the Arctic is warming and fast. So, what does that mean? So, as a whole, the Arctic is warming 4 times faster than the rest of the planet. But this warming isn't uniform. This is due to the mechanisms such as the melting of permafrost, release largest amount of methane, the putting greenhouse gas into the atmosphere, and the winter months have seen the most significant warming, with temperature in some areas rising by as much as 6 degrees Celsius over the past decades. Some areas are warming faster. For example, Svalbard is approximately 7 times faster, and Svalbard's main town may even the fastest warming city in the world right now, with this past year extending that trajectory. So here is an example that I tried to apply from the platform called Arctic Risk Platform. So I tried with Malaysia. So if Malaysia was on Arctic sea ice, which means it would have been lost since 1990. So what does it mean? It rapidly over the past few decades due to global warming, and this trend is expected to continue in the coming years. And the Arctic sea ice extent has been decreasing at a rate of about 13.1 per decade since 1979, and the Arctic is expected to be ice-free in the summer months within the next few decades if current warming trends continues. So, why it is important to take care of the Arctic? First, climate regulation. The Arctic helps regulate the global climate by reflecting sunlight back into the space and cooling the Earth. And second, to protect our biodiversity. The Arctic is a home to unique and diverse ecosystems and species, many of which are found nowhere else on Earth. Besides, the Arctic is home to indigenous communities with unique cultures, language, and ways of life that closely tied to the land and its resources. And of course, the Arctic contains valuable natural resources such as oil, gas, mineral fisheries that play an important role in the global economy. And last but not least, the Arctic is a crucial area for scientific research. It providing important information about the Earth's climate and the impact of global warming. So, how to protect the Arctic from global warming? First, immediate and substantial cuts in short-lived climate pollutants such as black carbon, methane can reduce the rate of Arctic warming by up to 2/3. And second, fast cuts to carbon dioxide emission are also important. Reducing the carbon dioxide emission is necessary in the long run to mitigate the impacts of global warming. Next, the strategies to remove carbon dioxide from the atmosphere such as natural processes that use photosynthesis and direct air capture of carbon dioxide need to be implemented at a large scale. And next, establishing the liability of the fossil fuel industry for climate impacts and making polluters pay for them can help remove single biggest barrier to climate protection. And next, one of the methods is using geoengineering strategies such as using silica-based glass microsphere to cover thin first-year ice in the Arctic to enhance reflectivity can be scaled up and reversed if side effects become too troubling. Therefore, preserving the Arctic and its ecosystem is essential for maintaining the Earth's stability and ensuring the well-being of both local and global communities. This requires a collaborative effort from governments, business, and individuals to ensure that the region is protected and managed in a sustainable and responsible manner. So that's all from me for today. I hope this video helps you to enlighten the information about the Arctic and how it impacts climate change as well as in Malaysia. Thank you.